Some women see this as a rite of passage, the next milestone in their journey. Some are ready for it and some are not. For some, there's excitement about what lies ahead. For others, uncertainty. And for many, there is a mixture of both, along with the hope that this next chapter might look very different from what they witnessed as their own parents grew older. Today, we are talking about retirement. Maybe retirement isn't simply about leaving a career or deciding what we're doing or what next with all that extra time. Maybe it's a much bigger life transition than we were led to believe. I have the experts in this area to share with you some things you may find extremely helpful. Welcome to Beyond the Glass Slipper. I'm Cindy, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a place where we talk about what it means to age with intention and purpose, stay connected, support our mental and cognitive well-being, and continue creating a life that feels meaningful to us. And now I'd like to welcome Lisa and David, co-founders of The Life Map. Based in London, they work with women from all walks of life as they navigate the transition into retirement and consider what this next chapter of life should look like. Lisa and David, welcome to Beyond the Glass Slipper. I'm so glad that you're both here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So I'm going to jump in and first ask you if you could explain what the Life Map is all about.
I'm going to let you.
You gonna let me do that?
I'm going to do.
Okay, so I developed the Life Map about 15 years ago, and it was for my own purposes. And I was at a stage of life where I was thinking about what's next, and I could see the retirement looming. And I thought, well, how's that going to work for me? So I came up with a method after doing lots of reading and research, and I basically, a quick summary, divided my life up into 7 areas, and each of those I've got interdependencies, and I worked out what I would like my life to look like in a year's time and what I would like it to look like in 5 years' time, which was my horizon more or less at the time. And after I did that, I worked out what goals I would need to set and what actions I would need to take to meet those goals. And then most importantly, a why for each of those 7 areas. What was going to get me to actually carry out those actions and reach those goals. And as a collection, if you like, of those 7 areas, what drops out the other end is basically a new purpose and a new identity. And that's where it originated from. And then it's kind of morphed a little bit along over the years.
Are you continuing on with those 7 areas that you initially designed?
Personally, yeah, I actually have it on my laptop, literally, and I just look at it maybe every other day, just to make sure that I'm on track. And then once a year, think of it as almost like a New Year's resolution thing. I look at it again and I go and I tweak it because life moves on. And I tweak it for the following year and think about, have any of my goals change? And if they have, how do I want to tweak it going forward? Realistically, I haven't changed it at all pretty much for the last 5 or 6 years.
Nice. So these 7 areas, just so that I understand, are these 7 areas that you and Lisa have identified that you would like individuals to focus on, or are these 7 areas something that a person works towards identifying themselves?
So it's a framework. Those 7 areas are fixed. Okay. So there you've got physical health, social, family, friends and fun is one section. There's a mindset section and so on. So these are 7 areas of a way of dicing and slicing your life up. There is a personal finance section, but there's also a career and business and contribution, because obviously sometimes you go into retirement, everyone's different. They may want to carry on their career. They may just want to contribute to society, do some charity work or whatever. So each of those sections, you're able to recognize yourself as the person filling it in,
Great.
and basically work out what you individually want to have going forward.
So what I'm hearing is that the plan is there's a framework, as you just said, I'm repeating that, but it's really very individualized. How do they determine, or how do you guide them in determining what they should work on first?
Okay, so I'll drop down one level. So the first part
And
of
if I'm getting ahead, you can pull me
no,
back.
that's fine. That's fine. So the first part of the process is a self audit, right?
Okay.
So you have to work out where are you today, and you may be in completely different places depending on who's filling it in. And that self audit is done again over those 7 areas.
Okay.
You work out where you are with your physical health and mental health and your social network and your mindset. It's something that's very individual for each person that's filling in. And then when you've done that, it pretty much drops out. You can recognize the areas that you need to look at more in depth, or maybe you're just more comfortable starting off on a certain slice. The one that's probably the most used, I guess, to start off with would be physical health,
Okay.
which is a great one. So very briefly, if we use that as an example, you can work out from a self-audit point of view where you are in your own physical health. And then you can work out where would you like to be in a year's time, which is a realistic. We always kind of overestimate what we can do in a year.
Okay.
But if you do a year and then you do, say, 5 years time, for me personally, what I did was when I've done my self audit, the first thing that came to my mind was my belt's too tight on my trousers, right? So, that's not good. That can't be good, right? So my year target was lose some waist measurement. So it wasn't comfortable, but I measured my waist measurement, said, okay, I need to drop at least 2 inches off of that. So that was my target for the year 1, and then an extra inch in 5 years' time. And then I had one of these super duper scales that you can stand on with that gives you all those horrible readings, right?
Okay.
Your fat percentage and the whole range. And
Exactly. And they give you an overall health score, and
and it
like,
wasn't good. It wasn't
it's
good. And I
startling.
sat and I thought, oh, well, okay, now at least I know the individual readings.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's
I could
helpful.
say, okay, well, that's where I am now. What can I realistically be in a year's time? And again, 5 years' time, what do I want to be? And then I realized for that realistically, I'm not going to do that on my own. And I thought I need to actually join a team, sporting activity, or I need to have some accountability. So I ended up joining a gym, and I got a personal trainer.
Nice.
And then there was a list of other actions. I thought maybe I need to do some yoga, increase my flexibility. I had a why at that time because my why for that was I hadn't married Lisa then, and I was thinking, right, Lisa's younger than me. I need to be fitter. I want to be around for long enough, right? So that was my why.
I like your
And
thinking.
and I could go into lots more detail, but that was pretty much one of those slices, which was the physical health.
But there's one thing I want to add too, because all of those 7 are really key and they're all individual on their own, but they also work together.
Okay.
So taking the physical health as an example, a lot of people always go, I'm going to travel when I retire. That's what I want to do.
Okay.
And there are so many different ways to travel. And we've had family come to London. So when you come to London, there is a lot of walking, and we need to take into consideration people's health and their mobility on the types of things that we're doing and the types of days we're planning. And for some of them, it's like, I'm going to see these things all in one day. And it's like, okay, there is actually no way we are physically going to see all of those things in one day. And, you try and make it a loop, have those rest breaks in between. And so it's one of those places that people go where it does start to overlap.
Yeah.
But that's just one slice, okay, of the framework. But then when you build in things like, social friends, a family,
So important.
personal relationships is another one. Was obviously key for me at the time. You go, okay, well, what do you want that relationship to look like in a year? What does it look like now? Or what does it look like in a year? Do you want it to look like in 5 years? So we're using that framework and using the right questions. Okay, as an individual can start to fill in some of the gaps and work it through. And when I first filled in the whole matrix, if you think of it like that, I thought, okay, well, that individually, slice-wise, they're okay, but this particular one of the 7 doesn't actually marry up with item number 4, because, I guess if you took personal finance as an example, right? You work out what you want your life to look like in all these other areas. And you might have said, okay, well, I want to travel a lot and I want to do, at the time, Lisa was in Canada. I was here. So to get a relationship to work, we had to go either way. A lot of back and forth, lots of air miles.
Logistics.
And a lot of expense. And then how do you account for that? And then you work that into your plan. So that kind of was a driver for me from a personal finance point of view. How's that going to work? What do I need to have? So when you start to fill it out, you realize that there's interdependencies between those certain areas.
Sure. It's kind of like a holistic type view from what
It's
you
a
just
holistic,
explained.
yes.
Not looking at anything in isolation, because there is, I guess, interdependence, as you mentioned. So when you talk about retirement, and I read somewhere along the line in your literature about feeling fine on the outside, well, something still feels off. What do you believe is really happening beneath the surface when women are coming to you and expressing, or maybe they're not even expressing that feeling, but it comes out through your investigation? What does that mean? Fine on the outside, well, something still feels off.
I think that's for me. There's a couple of things, and some of these are my own beliefs, and some of it comes out consistently. And I think part of it is the stories we've been told, right? When we're working, you're so busy in life, you've got things to do. You don't really have time to kind of think ahead. You go, yeah, I'll deal with that later. And then when you do get that more time, you start to feel it, but you're feeling it with things that you think you should be, and it still doesn't necessarily feel that deep, if that makes sense.
Satisfying, I would imagine.
Yeah, this is supposed to matter, and it doesn't. And sometimes you have to sit in that for a little bit and you go, why am I not having fun? And again, I've had people go, oh, it must be fabulous living in London. What a wonderful city. And it's like, it is a wonderful city. But if I have to have a choice between a wonderful city and a garden where I can just go and putter, for me personally, I would rather have the garden and go and putter. Beautiful spaces to go and see and amazing places, but I can't get my fingers in the dirt and I'm not allowed to, prune anything. And so for me, that's a major difference. And so sometimes I think it is actually sitting in that discomfort and recognizing that what you thought you wanted doesn't necessarily work anymore, or maybe it works for somebody else. And I think when, we look at Instagram, we look at all of these pretty pictures, it's like, that's what you want. You want to travel. Right. And again, right now for me, travel just emotionally, that's too much work. By the time I get everything organized and I go in and get settled somewhere else and the flights and everything else, it's like, actually, I don't really want to travel, and so.
We had a woman that we were talking to last week, actually, who had all of those things. She'd worked out that she wanted to travel in retirement and garden and see lots of friends that she hadn't seen her. And she did do all of that.
Nice.
But she said that she was still feeling off.
She's 5 years in, though.
She's 5 years in. So sometimes, and not all the time, but we see this reasonably often. It's like a 5-year honeymoon period where people retire or semi-retire. And for the first few years, everything's really good.
Mm.
Then all of a sudden, almost overnight, there's this realization that
What's next?
I kind of feel directionless. We've done that. We've done all those things that we were planning on doing. Sometimes it's almost a double whammy where they get caught up as well if they're lucky enough to have grandchildren and they've been roped into the child mind inside and it's just not ticking their box anymore.
Yeah.
And so really there's a difference between what they've said to us is it feels as though they're filling time
Yeah.
rather than having a meaningful life.
Yeah. I hear that from some of my girlfriends, and I have one that comes to mind in particular. She's owned businesses. She was big into horses and training the horses and having stables. She built a beautiful stable and she did all that. And now that's all past her. She can no longer ride because of her spine. And she's like, I don't know. I want to do something. I just don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So she may be a perfect client for you, for the two of you, because she's really struggling with that, and it's something that I can relate to on a personal level. I really retired for 1 year. It was almost 1 year from August 2023 to August 2024 when I retired and was traveling and doing a lot of wonderful things and spending a lot of time with family and friends. And August 2024 is when I started the research for my project that brought me where I am today. I was really grappling with, do I do my sixth, as I call it, sixth and final hurrah? And I decided to jump in, and there are days that it's really fulfilling, and then there are days that I'm still questioning myself.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how, like, I say to myself, oh my goodness, instead of working full time, I could be out playing more golf, but I know that just golf by itself is not going to do it for me. Do you hear that similar stories from a lot of the women that you work with?
Absolutely. And I mean, I won't lie, because sometimes that happens to me where it's just like, do I want to? It's nice to have the freedom. And I think one of the things we've strangled ourselves with is that word retirement. Right? For my grandparents' age, retirement was totally different. And you didn't have this expanded length of time, although my grandmother is 100. But, they had a huge garden, and the property that they lived on was their full-time job in retirement. There wasn't, and family and friends and, people coming to visit. So I think that's also a piece of it on what retirement is actually supposed to look like. And to me, finding some happy semi-retirement that, you have that little bit of purpose, but you have that ability to have the freedom. And your girlfriend, that's busy life. So how do you whittle that back to something that feels fulfilling and means anything when you're comparing it to this much stuff? And that is tricky for a lot of people.
And I guess, as Lisa said, we don't really like the word retirement.
Oh,
but it means something,
It needs to, I think it needs to be retired.
It does, but we don't have another word. And I'm even going to challenge you on the idea that, this is your sixth and you added the word final kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it would be my final hurrah with, I should really clarify, during my professional career, I owned a total of 5 businesses. And that's what I meant. Should I do this 6th business as kind of do one more thing before really settling into retirement and giving this a shot? So,
or maybe you'll end up doing 8 and they will just be smaller and less time commitment.
Right.
But I think that's one of the places that we set ourselves up for a trap. When you go, this is 6th, 6 is enough, 6 is final, this is final. And you might find that you finish this or it morphs into something else. And technically it's 7, but now I'm supposed to stop because I was finally doing 6.
Right.
There's.
And the other thing is as well, I mean, your grandmother is unusual. and she's lovely, right? But she's 100.
Unusual because she's 100.
And unusual. But, it's not that retirement as a concept is quite a new thing, really. I mean, our grandparents would retire and their life expectancy after that was probably only 5 to 10 years. So it wasn't very long. Now, so many things are changing now, and you can easily have like a 20 to 30 year horizon.
Sure.
And that puts a completely different angle on.
Yeah.
And yet the sort of traditional work environment hasn't really changed. So people are retired at, 60, 65, sometimes earlier, and they have potentially 30 odd years for another phase of life.
Right.
And as we said, that we've spoken to so many people now who they'll go through. It's an added complication if they're a couple, and one of them might be retiring earlier than the other one. That's a whole nother,
that's a whole nother
aspect of
dynamic.
Whole nother dynamic. And
That's huge. Yeah.
But you get then to spend potentially 20, 25 years with somebody full time, whereas perhaps if you've both been working, you've both been going your separate ways, and now all of a sudden that is why that's why the divorce rate has gone up so highly for
Gray divorce phenomenon. Yes.
But I think, again, it's one of the things that I absolutely love about this framework itself, because you can do it individually, and it gives people who are not necessarily used to communicating about some of this stuff a place to compare notes. My favorite my previous life, I was a massage therapist, and I had one of my clients, and she's laying on the table and she's just like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. My husband is retiring, and he had been homesick with a back injury. Before he had technically retired, he was home. She's like, he's got the woods.
She got a glimpse.
Cooking. I'm like, he's under my feet. He tried to go shopping for me. You should have seen what he came back with. Like, I don't know what to do with him. Like, I'm used to my own space. I'm used to, and because she had always been a homemaker. And I just kind of giggled in my head because she was at least kind of happy about it. But at the same time, you see a lot of people that they retire together. They have different visions of retirement, but they actually have been too busy to discuss what those different visions look like, how you might spend money, all of those things. I get.
We have examples of somebody I've known for a long time, actually, who he rang me up and he said, I just need to tell you that I can't thank you enough for the framework and whatever that you put it. He said, I'm not sure if you'll realize this journey, but he drove down to Cornwall from London, which is about a 5-hour drive.
Okay.
And he said he and his wife were in the car and they talked about this. They had the conversation about the life map framework all the way down there.
Nice.
They were there for a long weekend. They talked about it off and on, and then all the way back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's, as Lisa said, it's a useful communication tool, particularly if you're a couple. Yeah.
But it also works for friends and it works for family. And, even when people are talking about downsizing and how they might want to live differently, and it's like, oh, I'm going to move where my family is, or I'm going to do this. And it's like starting to think about, okay, well, if you have your social network here, or if you have ill health and you have all of your practitioners in one spot, do you want to be moving and trying to set that up? But if you just literally go, okay, let's talk about you moving, and you don't have this way of kind of breaking it down into smaller chunks, it can be really overwhelming. It's one of the things that made me smile when I first started doing it, because David had been doing this obviously for himself for 14 years at that point. And then he tried to get me to set it up on a spreadsheet like he does it. That did not work for me. It did not work for my brain. Not at all. I was just like, that's not going to work. And he's like, no, you have to do it this way and it has to be done. And I'm like, I can't do it. But I am more visual. And so for me, I kind of mind map everything and I start writing it down. I put stuff in different sections. And when I see the correlation between one or the other, then I make the notes for both. And so it gives me that ability to be able to morph it into what I need and still provide what he needs which was a big catalyst in being able to find the setup that we've got as far as Skool goes and have it in a way that I know will work for people that have a more analytical brain process start to finish, and someone like me who will usually read the book from the back, not a book, magazine. I'll start at the back. I start a book at the front. I don't skip to the end.
Yeah.
It's been encouraging and I don't know the word. I want to say helpful, knowing that it will work pretty much for anyone.
No. And it allows you, I mean, it sounds like you're really customizing your program and working with the person in the way it's most effective for them. And you're providing the framework. What it sounds like there's a lot of latitude there to make it work for the individuals that are involved.
Yeah, the way that we've set it up is that if you get it, and there's lots of information on the Skool site that's free, you can just go in and read it. And if you're a self-starter, you can just go ahead and do it. But if you need help and you need accountability, and then we're available to help as well. And there's a paid element, but we encourage everybody to go down to try it themselves, first of all. And
Nice.
and then we have what we call a weekly tea time chat, where we go online for an hour or half an hour. Meant to be half an hour, but it ends up being an hour, and people can just turn up and have a chat, ask some questions.
Yes.
So I'm stuck doing this. How does that work? So yeah, so it's a framework, it's a process, it's something that makes logical sense from my point of view, but it does cater for the Lisa type people who perhaps don't think of it. And if you're starting off with a blank piece of paper,
Okay.
and saying, what does my retirement look like? What do I want? It's very daunting to do that, right? Whereas if you work within a framework which breaks it down into different areas, you can take it in bite-sized chunks and start to work on the ones that work for you and you find easy.
Or hard, right? There are people out there that want to start with the stuff that is scaring them or is on their mind. And I think it's because we don't offer financial advice. It's the type of thing that you can take if you have a financial advisor or someone who is helping you with your money. These are also more in-depth answers to the questions they're going to be asking you. How do you want to spend your retirement? Do you want to travel? So if you actually think about it, it's like, well, I'm the type of person who wants to travel by myself. I need this kind of money. I need to go first class. I'm just hiking. Oh, I want to take the kids and I want to do this. Well, you're going to need a different kind of money pot to be able to do that.
So that was one of the drivers for me, actually, just to sort of top it off. When you go to see a financial advisor, they all go through the same, or a planner, whatever you want to call it in North America as well. They'll start off with an interview process, and they're basically trying to take on information of what your retirement ideally would look like for you. If you're lucky, they might spend an hour or so going through that with you, asking sort of pretty standard questions. Like Lisa said, how many holidays do you want? Do you want to change your car every few years or whatever
right.
That once they've found out, what's your mortgage situation and what have you got as assets? And I did that. I went along to see the financial advisors, and I realized, it was a bit of a beauty parade. So I went to 3 or 4 actually. And it wasn't until I got to the third one and I was giving the answers. And then I had a moment. I said, actually, that's not right. This is what I actually want. And they said, well, why did you say that before? And I said, well, I almost felt like I should say this, right?
Okay.
Right. But the reality is I don't actually need that. I would like this. The way that the financial advisors will work, the planners, is that they'll put your information into their laptop, into their machine, and hit a few buttons. They'll play with it, and out comes a cash flow at the other side. But I realized that the cash flow for the first couple of guys was just incorrect, right? Because the wrong information had gone in.
Right.
So the life map, if you think of it from that point of view, is instead of spending an hour and a half, you probably spend between 20 and 30 hours filling this framework in. So the quality of the output is far superior to the hour that you spent with the financial planner.
Yeah.
So we've had lots of meetings with financial planners, and we've worked with a couple of them where people will go through the life map process and then take the output to the financial planner for them to turn the handle to come out with their cash flow. So
that's awesome.
we're doing exactly the same, but we're just taking 10 to 15 times the amount of time.
The amount of time and coming out with valid.
We're going down into detail, whereas
Yeah.
it's more superficial if you're.
Absolutely. Do you tend to work with more couples or more individuals, more single men or women?
We've aimed more at single women, but we know that it helps no matter what their situation is.
Right.
The reality is that in a couple, if you're in a couple, it's the women who actually take the action.
Right.
It is most of the time. So if we talk about, it's like going to a doctor, women will go to a doctor from a preventative point of view before things are. Men won't go until there's actually something wrong with them. Yeah, and the same thing comes out with this. It'd be fine. Whereas it's mainly the women who go, actually, let's think this through. What do we really want this to look like? And so they're on the front foot.
Yeah, I totally agree with that from what I observed. I know that you're targeting women. I understood that, but I was just wondering, while you're targeting them, if you ended up working with more couples. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to ask you just a few questions with regard to picking your brain about what you've been seeing with the women that you work with. For example, like a woman leaves her career, and that's been a part of her identity for decades. When she comes to see you, those who are attached to their identity, is it the goal to create a new identity? Or, is there a common place with those women that come to you? And is it about rediscovering parts of herself that may have been pushed aside because she'd been so busy building that career, caring for the family, and taking care of everyone else? Do you see a shift?
Both. I think, did you want to answer that one? You want me to?
No, you can do that.
I think it comes back to those very first two parts that we talked about. So there's the 7 areas, but before you can actually go into that, you have to figure out who you are now. Ask those questions. What's working? What's no longer working? What motivates me? What excites me? Who am I becoming? Because you lose all of those roles, whether you were the manager. For most people, if they're a mother, kids grow up, move away eventually, and you may or may not become a grandmother. You may or may not be needed, but even then it might be in a whole different role. And then you have to decide if that role is actually still working for you. So you might be the type of person that had this interest that you loved before you had children, and you could squeeze it in with work, but then you had kids and it had to go. And now you've got a bit more time. Do you want to take that up, or have you moved on? Or a health concern or a health change that doesn't let you do that, but now it lets you do this. And so you really do have to look at who you are now, and then start making those decisions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
it's that self-audit. It's the process that we go through. So step 1, self-audit.
Yeah.
Where am I?
It's so important.
Yeah.
I can see how important that is. But do you see a trend in women going back to something that they've always wanted to do, or is it really individualized that it's really?
No, not really.
I'd say they're more stuck.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people stuck, and they know they're uncomfortable, but they do not have the curiosity, and I'm going to use the term bravery, to take that first little step. And why is all individual. That can be all that's individual stories on why, but as a collective, it's hard to watch.
Yeah. I'm sure.
I think it's because of the life that most women very general. But, looking after the home, looking after the kids, looking after work, it's such a change.
Yeah.
Probably more of a change than it is for men. I
You
think.
mean going from a caregiving role to
Well,
including yourself?
Given that you go from, this is questions aimed at women. Women normally are working. They're more so now than ever. But not only are they working, they're looking after the home. There's so many. It's almost a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
And then it comes to a stop. We see that a lot. Yeah.
Part of it, I think, is what we're modeled growing up. I think we're still in that little bit of a generation where, because
I agree with you.
a little bit younger than
societal
David.
norms.
Yeah. So my mom has been a caregiver for my grandparents for the last 17 years. And my grandmother just moved into a care facility in April or May. So she's now 79. And so I kind of giggle because my mom is 79.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's in the same place as my 23-year-old going, now what? My 23-year-old is a lot more comfortable with not knowing what is next than my mother is.
Yeah.
And there's also, in some situations, as an example, like moms, where I think you have to come down from whatever this, and it doesn't matter whether it's a business or a really hard career, like something you've just put yourself into 100% of the time, to come down from that long enough to go, wow, I'm allowed to even look at what it is that I want to do. But sometimes there's that recovery time of just the stress of all of it, depending, especially if you're a caregiver. There's been a few people that we've talked to and they've undergone their own health challenges. They're caregivers for their spouse. The children need help with the grandchildren, stuff. It's a lot. And so then you ask them, what do they want for themselves, or who are they and who do they want to become? And they're like, wow, that's.
Yeah. They never really thought about it. They hadn't taken the time, I would imagine. It's interesting because you use the word stuck, and I see it in some of the women that I come in contact with. And when they come to you, is it working through your program that do they actually realize that they're stuck, or is that something that you and David have noticed that they're stuck? Or I would imagine that going through your program that they realize that, but is the realization really coming from?
I think that they actually know that before. They may not like to admit it and verbalize it, but they pretty much know it. And when they've done their own self audit, which we help with sort of prompts and questions, it becomes more acceptable to them, if you like that. But that, those self audits that we all do, and I had the same experience when I did mine, they're not comfortable. Right, because you have to go, okay, well, that's really where I am, and we're all stuck actually into a certain degree. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the process anyway.
We wouldn't be finding it.
Right.
I think that was one of the things that I noticed as well when David was talking about the financial advisor and giving kind of the pat answers to those lifestyle questions. That happened to me when I started actually filling out my own life map. And I automatically put down the answers I thought I was supposed to. And what was fun was I went back, and the second time I looked at it, I was like, nope. And I added a couple more that I thought I should add. And it was about the third or fourth time I went back and I'm like, wait a minute, that actually isn't true for me. And part of it was I wanted it to be true, but the reality of situations and where life was at and having the move, and it was like, that's not true right at the moment. And so there's some that I've had to just totally readjust. Some I had to let go. Some I've pushed down the timeline and went, okay, well, maybe that can be true after we move, because there was certain kinds of social things that I wanted to do. And where we're living, it just isn't feasible. And so it's like, I don't necessarily have to give that one up, but I can slide it to the right a little bit and look at that again in the future. And so I think that was also one of the things. So what felt hard in the beginning, I made easy because I just put down what I thought I should. And then it got a little bit more uncomfortable as I started to look at that. But then it was also great because I knew I could change it, move it, slide it, and it was okay.
Okay. It's interesting. It's kind of a whole evolution of where you started and just trying to get through the task and
It
then
is an
going
an
back.
evolution. Yeah,
This part here.
yeah, it is an evolution because life changes, right? As well. So it's-
Sure.
something comes out of left field, and you go, "Didn't see that one coming."
Sure.
It could be good.
It could be good. It could be bad. Who knows? But it's a change, and it
Right.
means that you can go back and you can look at your framework. You can look at your life map, and you go, "Okay, well, I might have to tweak that a little bit now." But it's tweaking rather than wholesale. A plan's only as good as a plan at that time.
Right. Exactly. In that moment in time, for
Yeah.
sure. You use 3 words that I also use: intention, purpose, and curiosity. And I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing if you have a way that you help women maybe become more curious, start to find their purpose. Could maybe share with my audience.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think what you don't do is you don't start and say, "Okay, what's my purpose?"
Yeah,
Because
love that.
that's as we said before, it's too daunting to actually come up with that. I think you have to start off with little steps, and maybe your purpose evolves as well. Okay, and maybe our purpose is just to be happy. Right? It
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean to be a grand purpose in life. So,
I agree
so
with that, by the way. But yeah,
it really is try and take things in bite-sized chunks, and then your purpose and your identity drop out at the end of it. And that's what happened with me when I first created the framework. It's what happens with people when they go through it. They don't go in with a view of, okay, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? It's in the background, but when they've completed the framework, if you like, and the process, it just drops out as a reward of doing the work that you've put into it. So, yeah, definitely don't try and do too much.
yeah,
It's really working through the where I'm at, where am I now, where do I want to be, and then how do I want to, what actions am I going to take? Some of those actions morph into a purpose as well, and you don't have to figure out the rest of your life all in one go over a weekend. It's not going to happen, right?
right.
You just need
So true.
clarity on what deserves attention and
Yeah,
what's going to come next.
I
Bite
love.
size chunks, and then go to the next bite size chunk, and so on until you've got it. So typically we would have somebody spend 30 hours, maybe sometimes 40 hours. It's obviously up to the individual, but that's the sort of the thinking time and the sort of, version 1, this is what I'm going to do.
Mm.
And then it will, as Lisa said, when she went back to hers and I did with mine, you look at it again and go, actually, that's not realistic. If I can do that in a year, I'm not going to be able to do that and that as well. Let's elongate it and say, okay, well, realistically, I can do that in 3 to 5 years.
Gotcha.
If you go back to the physical health example, that's a great one. It's not realistic that you're going to knock 5 inches off your waistline in one go.
Right. Yeah.
The only way is consistency over a period of time
Sure.
of exercise and diet and so on, and you'll eventually get there. But
Right.
it needs that attention.
Yeah. And I think people that are realistic about the level of effort, attention that they need to give something, if they're realistic about that, I think it keeps them on that path a little bit longer than if they were to set themselves up for failure by saying, I'm going to accomplish this in half the time. because
Yeah.
they want to get there. So I love that thinking. That's
But-
great.
And then the other thing is what keeps you on that path is the why.
Right.
So another great example, one of the women that we were talking with who went through this, and she was desperate to become a grandparent, a grandmother, desperate. And she was, encouraging her two daughters and whatever. Anyway, eventually she got the news that, that she had some months to go, but she was going to be a grandmother. And so when she was filling in her physical health slice, if you like, of the framework of the process, she said, okay, I need to go to a yoga class and a Pilates class and, blah, blah. But when she got to the why, she got very emotional about it because, and that's the key, by the way, you have to have an emotional why for each of those 7. Her emotional why was, I need to be able to be fit enough and flexible enough to get down on the floor, play with the grandkids, and to be able to get up again afterwards. And she definitely wasn't at the beginning of that process, but she was at the end.
Awesome.
And that was the why that got her off the sofa and down to the Pilates and the yoga classes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever works almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just have a few more questions here, and I appreciate you going so in depth with me. So thank you. In your experience, what separates women who thrive during retirement and those who maybe struggle more with the transition?
I think that's the other word that you use is curious.
Curious.
You
Okay.
have to stay curious. I think the observation that we have is that the ones that thrive are willing to be curious and to discover new things and then to take action.
I'm going to add one word though: uncomfortable.
Okay, willing to be uncomfortable.
For
uncomfortable
me,
actions.
Uncomfortable actions because, and I started an adult ballet class.
Oh, I love it.
Never danced as a kid. So there is a huge learning curve. So it was not a comfortable action to walk into a new class and to meet new people, but it's given me exercise for my brain and physical body. It's given me a social outlet. I've met new people that I really quite enjoy, but that was not a comfortable curiosity at all. So sometimes it will be, but sometimes it is
uncomfortable
not. You on
actions is a thing in life. To take uncomfortable actions, you end up growing and you end up having momentum. And momentum then gives you confidence, and then you can go back and go around the loop again and pick up something else. And they're the people
that thrive. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. And have you heard women talk about feeling as though they're invisible at this age, that they have become invisible?
I think that goes back to the stuff we've already talked about. I had this role. I was the mother. I was needed. I worked in the office. I was needed. All of those things. And as those start to change, if they have not taken action for themselves, if they haven't taken time to figure out who they are now, what's important now, then you feel invisible.
I guess the better question on that, do you feel as though that feeling has amplified? The feeling has amplified once they hit this retirement and now they have the extra time, or I'm finding it as it relates to technology and women are feeling as though they're left behind. They go in to sign in for their blood work and they're doing it with a kiosk as opposed to a receptionist, and they just feel as though the world has passed them by. And have you experienced
so I see it as two different things. So I just like human connection. So I see that invisibility and losing people and connection. If I have a choice, I go everywhere where I can actually interact with a person. That's a physical choice for me.
Well, here in Florida, you would never get your blood drawn because there's no physical people there to interact with. It's Katie Kiosk that welcomes you when you enter. It's very frustrating.
It's like banking. Yeah. Banking is a great example. My aunt, gradually the banks were closing around her and she couldn't go into a bank and she was left behind with...
well, you took it over.
I was doing online banking for her and she she hated it. It was like a, so yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. So I still see those as two separate things, but yes, it's definitely happening. And again, if you're not putting yourself, I mean, even that first couple of times using the kiosk to go and get your blood work done is going to be a challenge. And,
it's going to be an uncomfortable action.
it is an uncomfortable action.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you can take an uncomfortable action to go to an evening class and learn about technology.
David, I totally agree with you. Don't put, it's almost like don't put yourself in that situation. You see it's coming, AI and the use of technology is not going to go anywhere. So avoid the inevitable and take a class. And there's so many places that you can do that today. And I agree with you.
Or get a group of your friends together, and instead of having book club, invite someone's grandson or younger child to come and give you some basic lessons while you're drinking wine in the safety of your own house.
I love that. I love that. My goodness. I had a golf girlfriend of mine come over and she wanted, Spotify. She wanted to know more about my podcast. How could she listen to it? And she brought over her MacBook, and on her MacBook, she has Norton, and trying to explain to her that she really doesn't need Norton on a MacBook. But she had so much security. My Wi-Fi could not connect to her computer. So the session was, I showed her what I could show her on mine, but it wasn't showing it on her own computer. But she's not getting it.
We have to take your MacBook to her house.
It's your new career. It's your business number 7.
Yeah, right. There you go, David. Yeah, it would be like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah. Well, we have 2 different son-in-laws that we call for different things. And if it's really technical, we call the one that gets that we don't get it. And if it needs to be figured out, sometimes we just take it to the other one and just give them the computer and go, could you just fix it?
Right. Yeah. And the only reason I felt comfortable saying that about her, I'm not talking about her, she knows I've said that to her, is that she's never going to figure out how to get online to watch any of my podcasts. So what's the difference? Whatever. But whatever. Yeah. I don't even want to get started on the whole fact. Yeah, we're moving right along. So I really appreciate you being here today. I do have one last question to ask of you, but before I do that, I want to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to share with my audience. I will be sharing your contact information and anything else you want to share about your program in the show notes. But is there anything else you'd like to say right now to my audience to let them know more about you, or something that we didn't discuss that was left out?
I have one quick one. And for anyone listening that thinks that they're going through this and they're the only one, or they have a stupid question, they are not the only one. And it is not a stupid question because we're all there. That's one of the things.
There's no such thing as a stupid question.
No such thing as a stupid question. And even the idea that you might have to ask it 2 or 3 times to different people in a slightly different way before you actually understand the answer. And that's okay too. So one of the most important messages I feel as though I've gotten from this conversation is that retirement was never meant to, and nor is it going to come with all the answers. And that's why we have wonderful programs and people like yourself that can help us get through this. So I'm wondering if you can share something you'd like to leave the audience with. One tidbit. You've given so much, and I appreciate it. One more afterthought you'd like the audience to take with them. All right. Don't wait until you think you have it all figured out. David already mentioned the little baby steps. Become curious. Take that uncomfortable action. Figure out what's working for you, what's missing, what you don't like. Let some of that stuff go. Those are old stories. Make that new one. You don't need all the answers, and just enough clarity to take that next meaningful step, I think. Thank you. I think that, well done, Lisa. Thank you. Both of you. I can't thank you enough. No worries. I'd like to formally thank you for being here today. And if today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode with another woman who may be asking some of the same questions. You never know when a story, a sentence, or an idea might be exactly what someone else
needs to hear. If you're looking for more community and connection, I invite you to join us in the Women's Encore Circle, where women can come together for meaningful conversations about navigating these years with greater intention, purpose, and curiosity. You'll find information about the Women's Encore Circle on my website, beyondtheglassslipper.com. And while you're there, please be sure to visit the Brain Center, where you'll find brain sparks and other resources designed to help you become more intentional about supporting your cognitive wellness. You can always follow me on Instagram and follow the podcast on Spotify or YouTube so you don't miss upcoming conversations, stories, and resources created especially for women in their encore years. Thank you for being here and for continuing to be part of this growing community. Share generously. This is your encore, and as always, remember to stay curious.